Hello, friends. Hello, everybody. I'm LD Madeira, and welcome again to the Improv and Magic Podcast. We've got another great episode today with another fantastic guest. I'm super excited to share that my guest today is someone who is talented, motivating, and quite friendly. Today's guest is Brian Palermo. Brian is an actor, improv instructor, comedian, and science communicator. He's performed and taught at the Groundlings in Hollywood, California, and has performed alongside many well-known comedians such as Will Ferrell, Eddie Izzard, and Harland Williams. He is also one of the original cast members of The Crazy Uncle Joe Show, one of the Groundlings' weekly long-form improv sets. From his experience as an improv instructor, he created Palermo Improv Training, which is a communications consultancy that uses the experiential learning of improvisational theater to upgrade human performance across businesses, the science enterprise, and sketch and improv comedy. Brian has also appeared on multiple television shows and movies, which include Big Mama's House, The Social Network, Grownish, The Happytime Murders, and Modern Family. And that's only a partial list. Brian is also an accomplished writer, and his writing projects include Warner Brothers Histeria and Disney's The Weekenders and Dave the Barbarian, both created by Doug Langdale. He is also a co-author with Randy Olson and Dorie Barton of the 2003 book Connection: Hollywood Storytelling Meets Critical Thinking. I love getting to talk to someone who is enthusiastic about what they do, and Brian certainly is that. You'll hear how excited he is about his improv and acting, and you'll enjoy the amount of love he has for performing and sharing this art form with everyone else. Get ready, friends. Here now is my guest, Brian Palermo. My friends, I am so thrilled to have with me right now the amazing Brian Palermo. How you doing, Brian?
I am fantastic, LD. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much, and Happy New Year, since we are in the middle of January.
Yeah, still close enough. Happy New Year to you and yours and all the listeners.
How was your holiday? How did you spend your holiday this year?
Good, man. We had a lot of visitors. So my in-laws came out for a week, and then we had a family of friends from LA who came up for like another 5 days or so. So we just had a packed house, a lot of fun chaos, and it was good. I'm still recovering.
Where are you living now? I know you used to live in LA, but where are you now?
Yeah, so I'm up in the Seattle area, but we're actually on an island in Puget Sound. So we're it's a little, it's not quite rural, but it's closer to rural. Like, so people think of Seattle, that's a major metropolitan city. But because we're on an island and there's no bridges, it's only ferry service. There's not a lot of commuters because nobody wants to mess with the ferries that much. So it stays kind of small. It's a place called Vashon Island, and I've only been here 2.5 years, and I love it. It's so different from LA, of course, and a lot of nature, a lot of green, a lot of woods and forests, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it.
Well, as I've gotten to learn more about you, you certainly are one of the busiest people that I've met. And I love talking to busy people because I'm always so curious how you manage to balance things out. How do you balance your career, your passions, and family? How do you manage to just balance all of that out?
Well, I'd love to answer you, LD, but I'm too busy right now. I got to go. Bye. It's just, it's the hustle, and it is the choice. So here's a good example. When we moved up here, we only knew my sister-in-law and her family were the only ones we knew up here. So I wanted to meet, other people on the island and start, building community or just making friends, whatever, the whole thing. So I volunteered for a bunch of junk. I'm on the Ottoman Society. I'm in the big theater thing on island called Open Space, which is really amazing. I work with this other group called Journeyman, which helps young kids sort of a mentorship program, blah, blah. So I just volunteered for a bunch of stuff. And even though, come 7 o'clock at night, I'd rather sit my ass on the couch. I was like, I'm going to get up and go and do the thing. And, so I make an effort, but also it kind of is rewarding to me to be busy, a lot of times. And then, there are times that you have no idea that I'm just eating, pizza by myself in the garage, so there's balance there too. So I'm balanced with busyness, and there's a lot of times where it's like, I'm just puttering around in my garden, and it's like, so I balance with that too.
So, because this is an audio podcast, I kind of want
Yes.
to paint a bit of a visual for everyone listening.
Right.
I'm looking at the amazing Brian Palermo, and I'm literally seeing a big snake behind him that looks like it's ready to pounce on him right at any moment.
Yeah, that is a monster that my friend Harland Williams drew. So Harland's a big stand-up and comic actor guy. You may remember him. He was in a bunch of stuff in the more the 80s and whatnot. But Harlan's a really talented artist. So he drew that for me one day when we were working on a thing. It's like, I'm going to put that in a frame. And I did. On the other side, I don't know if you can see because of the glare, but that's a letter P from Wheel of Fortune, because I used to work at Wheel of. That was my first day job in LA.
No way!
Yeah, signed by Sajak and Vanna and all that crap. So I worked there for 7 years, LD, and I loved it. I love it. Such a weird little corner of TV production. But I was coming out of New Orleans. When I moved to LA, I didn't know anyone that had any connection in any way to any entertainment industry stuff. So to work at the game show, and tell any grandmother, and they'll go, Wheel of Fortune, So anyway, that was a job for a long time. And what else behind me is the Crazy Uncle Joe show poster. That was the long form improv set I did at Groundlings for 20 years, and it's still going. It's in its 22nd. And then a family portrait. So and a peacock feather. That's a real peacock feather that we harvested, is the word that all the hippies use up here. We found that peacock feather in our yard because the guy two doors down has domestic peacocks. So the peacocks.
Really?
That's a pretty broad picture.
When you have people over, do you ever get asked to turn the P like in Wheel of Fortune?
No, that's a really good because it's up against the wall, and of course I'm in my bedroom office, so not as many people get the intimacy that you are getting, LD. They don't all get to see my bedroom.
Gotcha. So this is actually a good point to transition to where I always like to start off, which is getting to know about your early history and your beginnings. So why don't you tell us, where did you grow up and what was growing up like for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm a New Orleans boy. I grew up in a place called Metairie, which is the biggest suburb of New Orleans. So it's kind of a swamp boy by my metaphor, but really suburban, And I lived there, went to college at University of New Orleans. So I lived at home until I was 21 or 22 years old. Then I moved out to LA, where I was, sort of professional career for 32, 34 years, something like that. And New Orleans was great as I got into college. I was too shy to do theater stuff. I always wanted to when I was younger, like including high school, but I was too chicken and I couldn't do it. And then in college, I took like one, acting 101 class just to scratch that itch. And I loved it, of course. Like, oh, this is fun. And within that class, we had 1 day of improv stuff. So it was like learn a Shakespeare monologue and learn a 2-person scene, from Neil Simon. I'm sure I did The Odd Couple. And then one day there was like an hour and a half of improv. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. It's so fun. It's so loose. You don't have to prepare. And I'm a very lazy man, LD. So I just totally love the improv thing. So from there, I joined a group that was based out of Tulane. Now, I went to UNO, but Tulane is, of course, in town in New Orleans. And they had auditions, and I got into a group there, and we played in the French Quarter for, I only played for a couple of months before I moved out to LA and then started that whole run. So that does that touch it? Does that cover it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I am curious about when you were a kid, you mentioned that you were shy. Were you like a very shy kid growing up?
I would say normal shy, meaning, I was goofy with my buddies, but I couldn't talk to girls. I would never make a joke to an adult, certainly not to a teacher or anything like anybody in authority. So I was, a good little boy. And then around 6th grade, my buddy Ricky O'Neill, I would make whatever stupid jokes that sixth grade boys would do, so that's the mentality of very juvenile. But Ricky would laugh and cry. I would make him cry in class. And that was the first time I realized, like, whatever I'm doing is affecting my friend in a way that is bringing joy. And I was like, there can't be nothing wrong with that. So I got yelled at by the teachers a few times for being disruptive, but otherwise, that's where I learned, like, oh, this is super fun to make other people laugh. And I was getting my strokes and my dopamine because it made me feel good to make somebody else. So starting about sixth grade, I became kind of a class clown guy. And then I started to come out of my shell a bit more, gradually with other people and, again, with girls and adults and in other situations kind of thing.
I'm always interested in talking to people who have had that class clown experience because I remember when I was a kid, I tried to be a class clown and failed miserably because there were always other class clowns that were way better at the craft than I was.
The craft, I love it.
Nowadays, I think it is a craft to be a class clown. So when you were a class clown, was that the thing that really got you to open up a lot? And what did that do for you as a kid and amongst your peers to be that class clown?
This is a good question. This is deeper than I thought. This is much more psychoanalytical than I thought I was going to do this morning. I think I got I know I got some confidence out of it because being shy prior to, it was classic sort of don't make any waves so that you don't get any attention, negative or positive. So it was the bad, because I didn't want negative attention, like all humans, you don't want to be negatively sought out or stand out rather. But once I got some positive standout from being goofy and trying to be funny, that gave me a little confidence to try to talk a little bit more or be a little bit more outgoing or whatever it was. So the class clown thing definitely helped me there. Then in high school, I went to an all male Catholic school. So I would call it, somewhat repressed, but not horrible. But again, I had some comfort there with 1,000 other dudes, and you can make a lot of dude jokes, and that way, hopefully the bullies or the jocks won't beat you up because you made them laugh and you're funny. And it helps me fit in with, I was on the soccer team, but I was never a good player, but I was fun, hopefully guy. And I was in the service club, and I was in I participated in a bunch of stuff because I wanted to. And being the class clown allowed me, I think, the confidence to do that.
I'm also interested in how kids use comedy as sort of that defense mechanism, that mentality of, if I get myself, no one can get me. Was that very true for you in the beginning?
Definitely a part of it. And I still use self-deprecating humor. I enjoy it. But in my life, more than my career, I guess, I've used that self-deprecating humor to try to deflect, but I've also used humor, not necessarily just self-deprecating. I try to use humor to draw in as well and to engage as well. And it probably started with a lot more deflection. Like I don't want the negative attention, like I said, but then in some point early on, I learned, humor can be used to engage and to bring you closer with people and to open sort of a connection with people, because everybody likes to laugh. And I certainly didn't make everybody laugh. I failed miserably, endlessly, a lot of times. And that's one of the great things about improv is you learn how to deal with a mistake or a quote unquote failure, but it's really just an opening to the next step of the conversation. So at some point I switched from humor as a defense to humor as an engagement tool, technique. I don't know what to call it. And I still try to do that as much as possible. And I try to keep the other person in mind predominantly, because I don't want to be on all the time and steamroll other people. If I can add some humor to whatever circumstance and make things a little bit lighter, but still productive and still, effective, then I tend to try to use it. I don't always succeed, but that's when I try to use it. If it's not a circumstance where humor would be appreciated, then I don't. I try to control myself.
You piqued my interest earlier because you mentioned that you wanted to do theater, but you didn't do it at that time. And I'm curious what it was that kind of stopped you from doing it. Was it the shyness, or was there something else that kind of held you back from doing it?
It was being a human, LD. I was afraid if I went and showed myself as an asshole in front of others, then I would be shunned I'd be a social outcast. And then I've evolutionarily adapted for all of us. If we were shunned from, the caveman crowd, your ability to survive goes to almost zero. Your ability to procreate, which is sex, everybody, that goes to almost zero. If you're kicked out of your social group, then it's extremely negative for you as an individual. So that's where we all develop, according to an actor's understanding of Wikipedia science, this is how we all develop this anxiety around don't look stupid in front of others. And that specifically goes to public speaking, which is still held up as like the number one fear. It's because people don't want to look goofy or foolish or whatever in front of our colleagues, in front of our friends. So I had that very strong, and I didn't want to, step out and be seen negatively. I keep coming back to that. And then somewhere in high school, I got over it through repetition. My first job, I worked at Burger King when I was in high school, and you meet another 20, 30 people that work with you. And then you have to interact with customers. I must have interacted with thousands of people over several years in fast food. And then I delivered pizza for another 3 years, another thousands and thousands. And it was not intentional, LD. I wasn't taking these jobs to build up my social muscle or anything like that. But I think that was a byproduct of it. Was you interact with a billion people, and you're going to get more comfortable with people. I don't know. Did I address it?
I think you did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Way better than Wikipedia, I think.
Oh, good. I'm glad I was clear.
So at what point did you finally decide to dive right into performing?
Like in college. Okay. So that's the short answer. In college, I took that basic class, like I told you. And after that, my degree is in communications, not theater at all. So I'm not a classic theater person. But after sophomore year in college, I did everything I could in theater. So every elective I had was TV and film and stage and one directing class, all that kind of stuff. And I was very active in college. So I did several plays and all the scenes and, for other people's classes and other people's directing classes. And I did everything I could, TV class. I did everything I could in college. And there, you're allowed to participate. It wasn't like you did have to audition for a lot of that. But you're not auditioning against all the talent in Miami or all the talent in Chicago or LA or New York. You're auditioning against a campus. So I was able to actually get into a couple of shows. So that's when I first started performing. And then when I got to LA, I immediately sought out improv and was within a month or two was doing improv sets. And the first one, remember your first show, or I'm speaking to not just you and I, but our whoever's listening, I assume are improv people. I was doing a show like on midnight on Sunday or whatever. It was like a crappy show and nobody's in the audience except your other friends and various girlfriends and boyfriends and stuff like that. But that's where you start getting your experience or whatever. So in LA, I was able to perform fairly quickly, but, not in a prime spot. And after a couple of years, then I was doing, weekend shows that were a little bit bigger. And then it was just kind of continued. I've never stopped. I've been doing improv ever since. That's 35 years, So I love it. I'll never stop doing it. It's just such fun and such therapy and such joy. But anyway, so yeah, college, got into the theater stage thing. And then when I moved to LA, I got into the improv stage thing. And shortly, within a few years, I started chasing the professional acting.
While you were in college, did you have any memorable shows that you really enjoyed doing that ring true to your heart to this very day?
Yeah, I got to do American Buffalo, which is a Mammoth thing. And it's only a three-man show. And I was shocked that I got cast in it, but I was, and I learned a lot. That was more of a straight show. There's definitely some humor in it, but it was not about be the funny kid. It was try to be a real actor and pull off this character. So that was great. I did, conversely, a show called The Musical Comedy Murders of 1940. And wow, that was not a great show, but it was a great cast, and it was funny, and it was broad comedy, and it was goofy, and I just loved it. And I loved it because of all those things. The bigger cast, it was more specifically comedy, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, those are kind of two big shows that stuck out from my college years.
So I'm excited to ask this to a communications major.
I'm excited to answer it to a person who's excited in asking it.
Do you feel like it's a good idea to study communications because it opens you up to so many different aspects of show business, not just how to be a stage performer?
Yes, yes, yes. A billion times yes, without question, yes. So I got my degree in communication precisely because I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So the thing was, communications in my mind was so broad. You could do sort of professional audience facing stuff, radio, TV, film, stage, or lean into marketing, public relations, advertise, whatever. So I thought, okay, that's as far as what I know as a 19-year-old. I'm gonna aim for this communications degree and just see where it goes. But I never had the intention to be a professional actor because I thought that was completely unrealistic for me. Right? Again, I didn't know anyone in production. New Orleans has had a lot of production in the past 30 years, but when I was there, they didn't shoot anything there. It was not a production hub. So I didn't know anyone that even was a PA on one set for one day. So communication, and as it expands to sort of interpersonal communication all the way up to marketing campaigns that you hope to reach millions of people in a campaign or whatever it might be, that I thought would be something I was interested in, which is true. I was interested and I might be okay at. I thought, well, maybe, because I've started to sort of blossom out of my shell and I was willing to talk to people and getting more and more outgoing as I grew, I thought that was a good mix for me. But I would definitely recommend that degree to anyone because communication is underlying everything you do if it's interacting with another person, even if you are a skilled tradesman, if you're an electrician or a cook or a bartender or whatever, you got to deal with other human beings. If you're talking to other human beings, you need some communication skills that'll smooth all the other stuff out. How do you ask for the price that you deserve, the rate that you deserve? How do you communicate when there's problems without it being a huge blow up? So communication, I thought, was a really broad and strong foundation to then jump into something more specialized later. I didn't know all that when I was 19. I just thought, I don't know, I'll do communication, but it worked out that way. And I think it's a really strong recommendation.
Do you like the idea of being open to various possibilities? Because certainly you've been able to do
what are you
so
asking,
much.
LD? I'm married, but you are adorable. What are you asking? Certain possibilities. I cut you off for my bad joke. I apologize.
No problem. Because you've been able to do so much. I mean, you've definitely done so well with improv and the Groundlings, but you've also done so much TV and film, and of course on the production side of things. Do you like the idea of being open to doing anything that may come your way?
Yeah, I do. I feel like if it doesn't hurt others or myself, I should try it. And I'm pretty open to anything. I don't know if I was telling you prior to we started recording, but I was a tour guide at Universal for a month. I already said I worked at Wheel of Fortune. I wrote promos and produced promos for Disney Channel and FX and Sony and a bunch of stuff. I wrote cartoons professionally for 3 years. That was a great gig. I really loved that. So I put my finger in every pie I was allowed to, or I was invited to, or I just shoved myself into, So yeah, I was very open to everything, especially within the entertainment industry, because that's what I preferred. That's what I liked. But I would do. I painted sets for 1 week on a Barton Fink Coen Brothers movie. So I did everything I could. in part to see, well, what do I like? What would I like to do maybe for another 40 years as a career or something? And I tend to like everything, So yeah, I was very open to trying it, even though I was unskilled at all of it at the beginning. But that's another benefit of improv for real life is I just felt like I was more open to any possibility, and if someone gave me a chance, I would say yes, the classic yes and sometimes I would do well with it and sometimes I would not, but I would learn. I would always learn, and that's, into my mind, the best thing to recommend, that sort of big yes and mentality to life. And again, as long as you're not hurting people or hurting yourself, I say go for it. So yeah, I'm very open to trying most anything.
Well, you've offered me an effortless segue. Thank you
Hey,
very much.
you're welcome.
So you mentioned that you had that one day in class where you did like an hour and a half of improv.
Yeah.
So other than not needing to prepare anything, what was it about it that really resonated with you?
Ooh, it was just so lively, fluid, dynamic, energetic. The What helped me a lot, LD, was not having to learn lines. So and that was like a acting 101 class. So we weren't memorizing a full script or anything, but that took a lot of pressure. As soon as there was lines to learn, I felt like, okay, now there's a thing I can do wrong. If I get these lines wrong, then I'm going to screw up my partner as well as this whole thing. And I had all this anxiety about, like, well, don't get anything wrong. Improv, where there is no script, you can't get it wrong. I mean, you can certainly have a lot of moments that don't land, and I still do, but I didn't feel like I was messing my partner up because I didn't hit the cue line because I didn't remember the script. So that was one thing that really freed me up. I guess it was what that made it feel so free and loose. And I love that laxity. I love that levity. I love the ability to just play, the playfulness. Shut up. Cut out everything I just said and just replace it with playfulness, because you get to play, and it's easy and fun, and there's less judgment to it in my own mind, and I think in the audience's mind. I had a very good friend and mentor at the Groundlings named Patrick Bristow, and he taught me how to teach. So the Groundlings, you go through. I'll come back to that, but you go through all the classes as an actor, and then at some point I was in the company and they asked me to become a teacher. Well, then I have to go through all the classes training how to teach as well. And what Patrick mentioned one time, which I thought was brilliant, is improv's got this benefit of low audience expectation. They know you're making it up, so they don't expect you to be brilliant and clever every word coming out of your mouth, but it's got high audience appreciation. So if you land just a big emotional choice or whatever, the audience is really with you. And I always remembered that. It's like, yeah, they're not expecting this to be perfect because you're completely making everything up in the moment with another brain, another person, or maybe multiple other people, if you're working with a cast. So that's really hard to collaborate, and most audience members get that. It's really hard to do. So the expectation is lower and the appreciation is higher when you get something good. And that really unlocked a lot of stuff for me too, because I imagine, like many of us will relate to the ideas, like, if I'm doing it, I got to do it right, and I've got to say the funny thing, and I've got to be good, and I've got to be a talented actor, and I can't let down my partners. And you have all this junk, or at least I had all this junk in my head, and it took years to like quiet that down and just like go play, use all the skills and techniques that I've learned, but go play. When you're on stage, you're playing with your friends, and that's what I relate to the most, and I love that the most.
I so love everything that you're saying, Brian, and you're absolutely right about that, because always been a theater kid. I studied theater in high school and in college. And
Yeah.
when you're going through scripted work, there's a term that you hear all the time, and you had to have heard this term many times, and now it borders on cliche, which is you have to be in the moment.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which could be tricky to do when you know what the moment is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with improv, you actually are in that moment, which I think makes it so thrilling. Would you agree?
Well said. Absolutely, absolutely, and really well said. You have no choice but to be in the moment. Or well, that's not true. You can be in your head trying to write the next line, that you're going to say after. But as soon as you are in your head, you ain't in the moment because you're not listening to your partner. You're not picking up and observing what they're giving you emotionally, dialogue wise, space work wise, stage movement, all of it, spatial relationship, how close we are. And when we are that close, is it close romantically or is it close threateningly? It's like there's a gabillion facets to theater and to real life. And theater is trying to emulate some version of real life, right? So there's so many variables to it. If you allow yourself to think about all that stuff, and by the way, how do my ass look in these jeans? What's my hair? And I'm in front of people and human beings who are judging me. Dude, you could get so lost in all that crap that you are not in the moment. But if you're really open to the whole improv, zeitgeist mindset, whatever the thing is, I'm not a good word person. If you're into that, then you could just be in the moment and play. And I don't know what I'm going to say because I don't know what LD is going to say. And as soon as you offer something, I'm going to react to that something. That I think really trains actors to be in the moment. It's a great point that you bring up. And that's helped me so much in my professional career. And a lot of my friends, as you imagine, I've got a lot of friends who are deep improv people. And it's helped a lot of them have huge careers to that. And that in the moment presence is an incredibly valuable skill that comes from improv.
And what I also love so much about doing improv, you mentioned earlier about how you were afraid of looking stupid in front of your peers. But then when you really get into improv, that, at least for me, that completely switches to now I hope I look as stupid as possible.
Yeah, I want to look as whatever is called for in the moment, because
Right.
you could be, I can't tell you how many times I've played like I'm the dad, I'm the nice guy or whatever. But I've also, as many times as that, I played the alien with, laser nipples. And like, you don't know what it's an improv thing. So I love, and that's one of the things that keeps it so electric and fun is because you really just don't know what's going to come out of that moment. And it's great. And you look into your partner's eyes and you say, oh, there's some mischief going on there. What's this going to be? And it's a blast. I love it. Do people say blast anymore? I sounded like a 1950s guy.
Well, you just did.
I just did. So it makes it real.
Yeah, you're not aging yourself at all today.
Good.
So what was it that took you to LA?
In New Orleans, I love New Orleans. I grew up there, like I said, and I loved it. But I did not like the weather. It was very swampy. It was very hot. It was very humid and oppressive. I didn't learn to love nature until I moved out of New Orleans, sadly. My dad was a big fisherman. We went fishing all the time. We went crabbing. We went crawfishing. We did everything that a small boat can handle. But and I enjoyed that. But it's just brutal. So I thought, I'm going to go try the beach. My fantasy life was the beach. You live in near Miami, right? So
yeah,
that was my fantasy. It was like I want to be on the sand with the sun and surf and tacos and bikinis and volleyball. Like all that was like my fantasy. So I said I'm gonna go try LA and I was already doing some theater stuff in college, as I mentioned. So I thought that'll be in the world of entertainment. So I'll be close to all that. But as I also said earlier, I did not think it was realistic for me to go out there and try to have any sort of career necessarily in entertainment industry. But I thought, if I become an accountant at a movie studio, that would be more fun than being an accountant for, a steel company or something. So all of that went into my decision making, and I went out to LA. And I always had the fail safe. I was like, if I went out there and just totally shit the bed, I'd go back home and I'd live with my folks until I reestablished myself in New Orleans, because I can always get a job at a restaurant. I can always get a job, bartending or something, which I did a tiny bit of back home. So all that went through my processing, and went out to LA and just stayed out there for 35 years. And I had a great run. I really, really loved my time there.
I feel like every person who tells their family they want to get into show business always has that talk from their parents. Well, shouldn't you consider something to fall back on?
Yeah, right. And that's
I know I got that from my mom, definitely.
Yeah.
Did you experience that too?
No, because I never told anybody I was going to be in show business. I said I'm going out to LA and I'm going to see where I land with my fresh communications degree. And where it really wound up landing was at Wheel of Fortune. That was the first real job I had. As my first real job as a human, as an adult. Other than my first real job that didn't have food service connected to it. So I had no clue I would land there or in any part of TV production. I really didn't know, LD. I had the benefit of being ignorant, but also not being afraid. It's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to live on my Chevron gas card. I'm just going to eat pork rinds and beer from Chevron until I figure it out. And so that's kind of what I did. But I didn't have the fantasy of I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to make my living acting in shows and movies and stuff like that. I just didn't think that was even a realistic choice. So in that way, I never had quite the same rejection and dejection that a lot of my friends did. I had a lot of friends who came out, it's like, I'm going to be the next movie star. And like, wow, I admire your confidence, your balls and your arrogance and whatever it is. I don't share that. I never did share that. But I started getting a little professional work, and then I built a little bit of confidence. And then within, a few years, I felt like, oh, maybe I can play in this world. So when I went out to LA, it was not to be on camera. It was just to be around, the entertainment and Hollywood industry and see, where could I land? And it would probably, in my mind, be more interesting to me, for my preference, than working in hotel, restaurant, tourism, or in the oil industry, which are the two big things in New Orleans. And I wasn't really called to either of those. So that's kind of what pushed me out to LA.
Well, when you talk to people who are, as you described, having the fantasy of being the next big actor or the next big movie star,
Mm-hmm.
of course, one thing that you have to put up with when you want to get into that world is rejection.
Oh.
Do you feel like because you allowed yourself to cast a very wide net, that kind of helped you not worry so much about being rejected?
Without question, yes. Because and now let's be fair. I was the beneficiary of this, looking back on it, but in that present moment back then, LD, I was really kind of playing small. I mean, I wasn't fearing the rejection so much because I didn't put all my eggs in that basket. I wasn't targeting, I will be a TV actor or anything like that. And because I didn't have that as a specific goal, I never felt the rejection or the dejection of not achieving it, right? So whereas a lot of my friends were focused, they were going to get it, they were doing this, they were studying towards it, they were rehearsing constantly, doing all that. And I did some of that, but always through improv. I didn't do scene study. I didn't do acting training. I didn't have a real acting coach for decades, that kind of stuff. So that's how I got through the anxiety around chasing that sort of an acting dream, is I didn't label it. I didn't call myself an actor until I was in my 30s. I was working again at the game show, writing cartoons, stuff like that. I was in and around entertainment, but I was not an actor until I was young 30s or maybe even mid 30s, where I would say, yep, that's what I do. I've now had a couple of years where I've made money off of that. So I can say I'm an actor now. And I that would always hit my brain like, really? Are you lying to people when you say that? It's like, you're not. But I was, but it took a long time to get there. But a real fast thing on the rejection thing. So I'm a Virgo. I'm a list keeper. I keep a lot of data. So over my 25 years of acting, I had 1,700 auditions. That's radio, television, commercial, a little bit of stage, all of it, anything, industrial film, anything, right? So I had almost 2,000 auditions, and I booked less than 5%. So another way of looking at that is I failed to get the job over 95% of the time. That's a rejection rate that I think would pummel anybody into depression and making a different choice. But I got there, with all these other things. As you said, I was open to all this other stuff. So while I was auditioning, I was still working at the blah, 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 or still, not only a day job, but a good day job with the game show or whatever. So it made it a little bit easier to take that. And then, I cut to now, I was able to make a living off of the last 20 years of it, booking less than 5%. And that gives you a scary number of, what you were just saying. Every parent is going to have that discussion with every child who says, I want to be in showbiz. It's like, okay, be aware of the reality, is like less than X% ever make, living off of it. And X% less than that ever make any money off of it. And 1% of that X is Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks and whatever. So it's a tough little window to fit into, and I'm just so grateful that I got a little time in there.
Yeah, it's funny. People don't realize that when you see a Tom Hanks or a Robert Downey Jr., you don't think about the fact that for that big yes that they got, there were like 50 or 100 no's behind that yes.
Maybe more. Those guys are fantastically talented, and they might have got there a lot faster than me. And also, this was my level, LD, is that I was able to make a living with a 95% fail rate. But I went through ups and downs through my career, and whenever I got really down on, it's like, geez, why am I banging my head against this wall? I booked one job in a year. I can't live off. And whenever I get really down on that, I would remind myself, it's like, okay, if you bring this energy into an audition, you ain't going to book that audition because everybody can feel it and smell it off of you, right? So, and when I would get in those down moments, I would remind myself and say, okay, look, if you want to stay in this career, you know what you signed up for. I know what I signed up for. I know how hard this is. And it's not all a referendum on talent. Talent's got a very small part to do with it. A lot of times just who's in the room, networking, what do you look like? So much of it was stereotype, especially when I was starting 30 years ago. And I had the benefit of being like, average looking white guy, and so I got to play a lot of waiters and stuff, and smaller roles. But now that's all a little bit different. I think it's much more open-minded casting, but still your physical appearance is going to be a big part of casting. How tall are you? They ask you that at every audition. What's your height? It's like, I don't know. Why does that matter? It's because they want to see what are you going to look like next to the star. If that star happens to be shorter then they don't want a tall guy. Race, age, size, gender, all of that crap. And a lot of times it's just, oh, you of course could do this Oreo commercial just as well as the next 20,000 people that come in the room. But you know what? You've got that mom haircut that says, oh, I've been struggling all day with a 3-year-old and I just want a little break of my Oreo cookie and I smile at the end and you've got a high dimple cheekbone and you're my mom, whatever, and you can't control any of that. That's completely out of your control. So it took me a long time to learn that too. It's you audition and it ain't just talent. It's a lot of it is just looks, and that's hard to, you can't fight it. So you got to accept it, or at least that's how I felt about it. So every time I got down on myself, I would say, okay, do I want to keep doing this and keep taking the rejection and keep learning in classes outside this, trying to get better, trying to improve my talent, knowing that you may never book another job. And that's the big thing is I would book you saw my resume. I mostly just like little guest stars here and there. And I was very, very grateful and happy and blessed to have those guest stars. But I might work a week on Friends. I did an episode of Friends way back. And then, the second they call cut, I may never work again for the rest of you've got to know that that's a real possibility. Probably not that dramatically true, but it's a real, actual, genuine possibility. You may never get another job ever. And boy, is that pressure on you when you're trying to, and that pressure comes out in your audition. And it's all this huge thing, LD. It's this huge, circle of good and bad. And, it's life, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, I went through a lot of those moments and I learned from others in audition rooms was like, wow, that's a friend of mine or a guy that I know because we're the same type and we go out for every commercial. And he's just really in a pissy mood and he's really bitter about the blah, blah, blah. It's like that. I didn't want to be that. And I thought if I get that bitter, I'm not going to bring my best acting and I'm not going to like myself and I'm not going to like this career. And I'm not going to so every time I got close to bitter, I would check myself and say, make a choice. Do you want to, if you're choosing to do this, then choose to go in with joy, because if you choose to go in with bitterness, it ain't going to help, So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you got to learn from the doing as well.
Hearing all this is way more therapeutic than you can possibly imagine.
Good. I'm hoping to offer something to you and the listeners as well. It feels like it's therapy for me, LD, but good. I'm glad that you're responding to it.
Forgive me, but I do have to ask this very obvious question since you mentioned you were working on Wheel of Fortune.
It's not a toupee. It's just my natural hair. You son of a bitch. I hate you.
I got to ask, what's Pat Sajak like?
Oh, Sajak was great. I mean, I haven't seen the guy in 20. It's not like we're friends, but we worked together for 7 years, but Wheel shoots 5 shows in a day. So they do 39 weeks of original program a year. That's 39, maybe 40 days of shooting. So I would see the talent 40 days a year. It's not like I was good friends with him. But Sajak, I would always say, much funnier in real life than you could be on the show. When you're
really
smarter and funnier, I think, because when you're in a role of game show host, which I've done a little bit on I've done some hosty stuff. You're there to serve the project. And the project is, hey, welcome LD from Miami. Tell us about you, and you get a couple of minutes of chit chat. And then you got to serve the mechanics of, all right, here's the new puzzle and these are the rules of the game. And this is the prize that you might win. And in a 22.5-minute episode, because that's what, 30-minute slots are, you've got about 20 seconds of you putting yourself out there. Everything else is serving the machine, serving the game. So Sajak, I thought was really funny. I liked him a lot, but yeah, it's not like we're buddies. I haven't seen him forever.
Your number is not in his Rolodex, I don't think.
I doubt it.
Well, let's talk about the Groundlings. How did you encounter the Groundlings, and what was that experience like?
Mostly great, especially looking back on it. But, I'm sure if you'd have caught me in the middle of some classes, it would have been less so. But before I moved to LA, I had gone out to visit LA twice. And on one of those trips, I went to see a show at the Groundlings, because by then I had gotten my improv taste in college. It was like, oh, I want to go see improv. And I had seen Second City in Chicago on a visit, obviously. Once there, and I asked around, and everybody said, "Well, Groundlings is like the big improv thing in LA." So I went and saw a show, and I loved it. It was great. It's real sort of high end talent that goes through there. So I don't remember who I saw in that show that when I was visiting, but everybody was great, and it also was the first time I saw sketch comedy, other than that one show at Second City. It was the second time I guess I saw professional sketch comedy live. I'd seen a lot of, stuff on TV, but it all worked. Everything worked. I had never seen a show where every sketch worked and every character and every emotional choice. And they pushed it enough to be funny, but it never pushed so much that it was annoying. And that is, in my opinion, so everything just worked about it. So when I moved to LA, I knew I wanted to take classes there. So that was the first thing I did, is I signed up for, basic class or whatever. Like within a month of being in LA, I was taking that first class at Groundling. So they have 4 maybe 5 classes now in the core curriculum. So I took all the classes, and, you either pass or get asked to repeat. So if you're not at a level to handle the next class, we don't put you in that next class. We ask you to repeat until you get your chops up to a level where you can not only keep up with the others in that next class, but that you can actually achieve, and you're not going backwards and scrambling all the time. So I took all the classes, and if you get through the last one, they might invite you into the Sunday company. The Sunday company is our rookie team that's trying to get into the main company. So I did 1.5 years in Sunday, and you're doing a show every Sunday, and it's 80% new every Sunday. So that means you are grinding out new sketches 3 or 4 a week, every week, for as long as you're in that company, and I was a bad writer. I'm still a bad writer, LD. I'd have to write 10 sketches to get one that worked, and I'd look at others in the company, my contemporaries, like, oh my God, Jim Rash is a friend of mine in the company. Jim was Dean Pelton on Community, if you can envision Jim. Everything he wrote worked. Everything he wrote was just great. And then, or somebody like Jennifer Coolidge, who's I would say, I don't think Jen would fault me if I said she's not a great writer, but she's a great performer, and everything she did worked. And so I would learn by watching these people and others. So I'll be gross and name drop for a second, but it's Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph and Will Ferrell and Will Forte and all these people. Chris Parnell is lesser known, but I love Parnell so much. So I was learning from them while I was in that company, and it was just overall a great experience. Highs and lows for sure. I would have some shows where it was like, oh, Palermo stood out, and I would have some shows like who are you? Which one were you? Oh, you were the waiter in 3 scenes. It's like, so you get all of it. You get the highs and lows of it. But overall, a great experience for me. And I learned a ton, and I learned a lot more when I started teaching. So teaching, the old saw is, if you want to understand something, learn how to teach it, because you need to know it in order to share that with others. So 10, 15 years into my tenure there, my experience there, I started teaching the upper levels, the higher levels, and I learned a lot more about sketch writing and character development and stuff than I did when I was in the company. Because I was in the company for 7 years, and then I stepped down. But as an alumni, I still teach and perform and direct and all that kind of crap. So anyway, yeah, I had a great experience of it, but with ups and downs, and again, very small percentage of people ever get through all the classes and get invited into the company. And part of why I was invited was not talent, but I was known as a nice guy, a fun guy, not an asshole, somebody who's a good collaborator. And occasionally I would get a big hit. I always describe myself as like the best bench player. Like, I'm not a starter, but I come in and I'm not going to F anything up. And occasionally I'm going to give you a fantastic, you're going to get great minutes out of Palermo. That's the way I would describe it. Does that answer the Groundlings thing?
I think so.
I think so.
What were some of the things that you learned and took away with you from being a groundling?
Character, for sure, character, because I didn't understand character. And comedic character, LD, is a whole nother thing, because it's got to be, if you play a character, it's got to be grounded in something relatable. But then it's got to be exaggerated to a comedic level. And that is so hard to do, to modulate. I look at Melissa McCarthy, who's another who's a friend. I don't know if I just mentioned her, but somehow Melissa does the most ridiculous shit. And I always believe it's like underneath all of that, there's something real there. So she's the annoying woman in the office, but she's annoying because she's lonely. She's just trying to connect. This is just a character who doesn't know how to connect in a positive way. So she's connecting in a horrible negative way, but it comes from this loneliness. Or there was always, the biggest thing to learn is, how do you find a character that's relatable on some level, but then exaggerate them so that they're funny, so it's a comedic level. And that's Groundling specific. We're entertainment, and we're comedy and humor, right? In the past 10 years or so, I've been exposed to a lot of other improv, and I love it. And some of it's more theatrical. Some of it's not funny at all. Some of it is striving to be funny, but when it's not, we say, like, well, that was more theatrical. Groundlings was funny, because Groundlings is in LA. LA is a entertainment industry hub. And you were hoping to get seen by a producer or a casting person, and that did happen occasionally. So there was always an emphasis on, we are here to entertain this audience, and hopefully I'll get a guest star on According to Jim out of it, whatever. So as I've learned in the past 10 years or so, not everybody is going for the laughs, and everybody's going for the yucks, and that's great too. I love that. I love to watch any improv, really, if it's done at a higher level. Doesn't have to be funny. But anyway, so Groundlings, I really leaned into the comedy there. I learned a lot about writing. I learned about professionalism, how to collaborate with other people. Oh, that's one of the biggest ones, because in entertainment, in arts and theater, We are a lovely crowd that has great creative, outreach and output, and we just come up with great, crazy stuff. But a lot of that crazy stuff is not realistic, so it's hard to work that into a project that actually produces a thing, right? Working through that through so many years through sort of the Groundlings filter, you learn, all right, you got to be able to collaborate, you got to be able to write, you got to be able to play straight characters and crazy characters, you got to be able to do it all. And I learned all that through Groundlings. I mean, it was really such a sort of a graduate school level education for me after I had my undergrad degree. It was a really professional training there, and you're just around it. And I learned so much from watching all those people and all the others that your audience won't recognize the name of, all these other great people who were also producing material that was like, oh my God, that was a fantastic sketch. Why? Why did that work? It was clear. It was a strong choice. The emotional choices were there. There was an arc to it. It's a 3-minute sketch. How do you put all that shit into? They do, and learning that is incredibly valuable.
Let me ask you this. When you're in a scene, whether it's a two-person scene or a group scene, how focused are you in trying to make the audience laugh?
I'm not. What we try to teach at Groundlings is let the humor come out of the natural interaction. So let the humor come out of relationship and emotion. So because I got in with Groundlings early, I did not train with the other houses. I'm a big fan of all of them. Second City, when IO was still around, UCB, I'm a huge fan. All these groups, West Side Comedy and Santa Monica's got a great, I love them all, but I didn't train with them all. So I can't speak. All of us in the improv world know a little bit about the others, but I can't speak from real experience. I will say that Groundlings focuses on character and relationship. So when we play stuff in improvs or in sketches, that's usually occasionally there'll be like a simple parody or just a song or whatever, but mostly we're pushing character and relationship. And we want the humor to come out of relatable moments. We want the audience to look at the crazy character and go, oh my God, my mom is like that. The guy at work is like that. I am occasionally like that, right? So we want it to be relatable, but this is this 3-minute sketch or scene, this is a moment that matters. So it's a moment in this character's life that everybody gets. You and I we all have moments where we're loving and bitter and grateful and selfish and, all the stuff. The way to get a sort of comedic character, in my opinion, through sort of mostly Groundlings, but there's a little bit of Brian bullshit on this too, is pick an emotionally charged moment and highlight that moment. So you're seeing a 3-minute sketch of this is really highlighted of Brian's selfish character. And everyone in the audience is going to relate to that on some level because we all have those moments where we are selfish. Hopefully that's not what you're known for in your whole life and 24/7, that everybody would want to stay away from you. But it's relatable because we all have that. So that's more what I'm thinking of when I'm doing an improv or a sketch is make this human. I'm going to exaggerate this moment because this is a very big moment for this guy. This character's in, this second of his life is the main thing. That's why we're showing the audience this 3-minute window of this character's life, because this is the big moment. We're not going to show you the 3 minutes where the guy's making toast and spills his orange juice. That might be also very relatable, but that's not the funny stuff. So I want to start relatable and then exaggerate it. And hopefully, if I'm doing it right, the audience generally goes along for that ride.
Yeah, I absolutely agree and love what you're saying. And, one thing I often tell to students is there's a big difference between acting as a character and a caricature.
Yes.
And what I love is you can have the most outlandish character in the world, but what really makes that character who they are, there is a deep center that they have. There is something that comes from the heart. There is meaning, there is reasoning. It's just like when you watch any DC or Marvel movie, you see the villain, and they're not the villain just because they woke up and decided they want to destroy the world.
Right.
There's a reason behind it.
Thanos has a very valid reason for wanting to kill half of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of easy to say, LD, but it's incredibly difficult to execute. I look at Will Ferrell and Kristen and Melissa and Maya and all those guys and go like, God damn, I wish I could do that. I don't have that skill set, but they have a way of, and outside of Groundlings, I love Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and Bill Hader and there's so many good sketch comedians and Steve Carell, Colbert, all of them. I think those are all second, whatever. People, comedic talents who can have some relatability underneath the crazy are my favorites. And the audience generally goes for that ride, like I said, because it's relatable. Hopefully your audience will never be as obnoxious as X character is, but they definitely feel that moment's like, oh, they're acting out of defensiveness, or they're acting out of insecurity, or they're acting out of overconfidence. Some kind of human flaw is always a good place to start. And then you blow up. You could blow it up for 3 minutes. If you blow it up for 3.5 minutes, you're no longer believable and everybody hates you. So I don't know. Maybe that's the thing, is just keep it under 3 minutes, kids. That's the whole thing. I don't know.
One thing that I definitely enjoy is being able to find similarities between myself and my guests. And one thing I definitely relate to you on is that, because you mentioned this, we both learned a lot by teaching improv.
Yes.
So what did you learn more about improv as a teacher?
Letting go, going with the flow, really focus on the other, playfulness, all these things. If I have to distill it for these two, I'd say playfulness and focus on the other. So when I first started, again, it was all through my filter of, am I funny, or am I clever? Am I good? Whatever that would, whatever judgment that is. And it was all about me. As I learned more and more, it's like, focus on your partner, make your partner look good. We all know that. Everybody in the improv tribe knows that phrase, right? And it's easy to hear, again, easy to say, but hard to execute, to get out of your head and really focus on your partner's idea. So my two big things are playfulness and focus on the other person. And when you're focusing on the other person, that keeps you present, that forces you to listen, that makes you more observant. All the good skills that we practice in Improv 101 are then implemented through focusing on the other. Yes-anding their offer. You're not going to know their offer unless you listen to them, unless you focus on them. And again, how are they offering it? What's their emotional state? What character are they coming from? So playfulness and focus on the other are my big things. And the playfulness comes up because when people are learning improv, and we're all always constantly learning, hopefully, but when you're a beginner, say, when you're new to it, it's hard to be playful because you're trying to learn the techniques. I wouldn't say the rules, but we all have guidelines around it. So you're trying to learn, listen, and yes, and space work, and make emotional choices, and make character choices, and don't ask questions, and all the stuff that's a lower percentage choice. And none of this, I don't feel any of this is black or white. You may never ask a question, and I think that's ridiculous. But it's a higher percentage choice to make statements and make offers, as opposed to just saying, well, what do you think? What did you bring to, what's that thing in the garage? It's not wrong, but it's a lower percentage choice, in my opinion, because you're not driving the scene. You're not making an offer. You're just throwing it right back to your partner. So when we're beginners to this skill set, we're trying to learn all the techniques. Once you can get past that a little bit, then you can engage playfulness. And that's where I think all the best stuff comes out of, is just being playful with your partner, and seeing where that gets you. So those would be my big two that I learned from teaching it, is, learn the techniques so that you can get to a point where you're playing with it, playfulness, and always try to get out of your own head by putting your focus on the other person. And see how can you support their idea. They're going to do the same for you. So it's not as if you're just, featuring your partner. They're going to do the same for you. So you're discovering shit together. You're building shit together. So yeah, playfulness and focus on the other would be, I think, what I learned from teaching it.
How do you feel that with everything you've learned in improv and sketch, how has that helped you as you've been able to branch out in all of these other TV and movie spots that you've done?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of aspects to it, LG. First is commitment. I don't think I've mentioned the word commitment in the past hour. Whatever your choice is, you got to commit to it. That's another big thing Groundlings does. Not better than other houses, but that's a big thing that we push. You can make the choice to be the weirdo at the swimming pool, but you got to commit to playing that. And I got to see it in your body and hear it in your voice and see it in your facial expressions. If you commit to it, if you sell it, they'll buy it. And I hate that cliche because it sounds like so fake it till you make it. And those are helpful to a certain degree. But the commitment, the way I teach it is, you are putting every molecule of your body into this state. If you're playing, lovelorn, then every atom of your body is lovelorn. If you're playing, confidently carefree, then every molecule of you is confidently carefree. If you commit to your choices, that'll take you a long way. So that was a big thing to learn for me. Translating it to professional work is, okay, I've got 2 lines on Suddenly Susan or whatever. This is my first job. My first job was Baywatch. I take that back. But you got to commit to those 2 lines as if it's the whole thing, as if you're doing, a monologue in a Shakespearean play, or you're working with De Niro or somebody. That you got to commit to all of it. So commitment is huge. Character translates, and a character translates particularly well in commercials, I find, because commercials, you only have 30 seconds. And 8 of those seconds are taken, Drano will unclog your blah, blah. You don't have a lot of time to express character. If you understand character at a level where it's relatable, but then slightly exaggerated for commercial, you don't want to go so crazy. Playing character makes you very engaging to the audience. And that's what the client wants. You represent the product for the most part. So they want the audience to be engaged by you and to come away liking you. And if you can play a character that's relatable, but a little funny, that helps a lot in commercial. I had a very good commercial career for a long time. Stephanie Courtney, who's a very good friend of mine. Stephanie Courtney plays Flo, the progressive girl, right? That's Groundlings 101. That's character right there. And then the guy who's her sidekick in the progressive campaign, who plays Jamie, is Jim Cashman, who's another Groundling. Jan, the Toyota girl, is Laurel Kopic, who's a Groundling. The guy that does the emu, LMU emu, whatever the fuck, that's David Hoffman.
Emu.
Thank you. That's David Hoffman. He's a Groundling. So it's and even me at my level, I never had a campaign like that, but I had 2 or 3 jobs where I did 6 or 7 spots. That I think that character work really translates to short form very well. So commitment, character, collaboration, all the C's, I suppose, connection with your audience. This is what I learned from Groundlings and improv writ large. This is what I've sort of learned as I became a teacher, because I've been teaching for 20 years also, so it all comes together. But emotional choices, you got to make an emotional choice. And here's the thing. You've got to express that emotional choice in a way that the audience recognizes it. Because if you're doing a movie with Adam Driver and Meryl Streep, you can have it all sort of underneath. And if we got a 90-minute feature that's well written by a great screenplay writer, then you may only have 1 or 2 moments that you're sort of overly expressing or expressive enough that the audience gets what's going on there, because everything else supports that in this medium. In a 3-minute improv scene, you don't have that. I guess it wasn't written by, Aaron Sorkin. It's not produced it's that you don't have 90 minutes to slowly peel the onion and reveal if you make a choice, you've got to make an expressive choice that tells your audience and your partners what you're playing, what you're going for there. So sometimes that gets read as, it's too big, it's too over the top. To me, it's like, it's clear. And now you can build upon that next step. You can move to the next step of the scene because it was clear. Because real humans don't always express, or they only express in huge dramatic moments. A lot of times, real humans only express emotions when there's a bigger moment. Improv, I find, characters benefit from expressing when it's a big moment to them. So even if it is you spill the orange juice to that character, that's a big deal. Because, oh my God, now you've ruined the brunch. Now everyone's going to hate us and no one loves our whatever. Or you spill the orange juice, like, way to go, Gary. You're working on your motor skill. Whatever the F. But the moment's got to be meaningful. If the moment's not meaningful to that character, it's not meaningful to the audience. That's a good one that I'm going to butcher. If your character doesn't care, your audience doesn't care. A step beyond that is you've got to show the audience that your character cares. And if you play everything straight and non-expressive, they may not get it. Stepping out of theatrical improv for a second, I work with a lot of scientists. I do a lot of training for presentation skills and delivery skills. And I love my science and tech cohort, but they do trend towards non-expressive. They're so focused on information and data and facts and evidence and things and stuff that they don't focus on the humans that they're trying to express that to. So a lot of time, and they're trained to be dispassionate, objective, rational. They're trained to take all emotion out of their delivery. And what that does for the audience is like, well, yeah, people have been talking about climate change for 30 years, but nobody's screaming about it, so it must not be that big a deal. Cut to where we are in the crises right now. So express the emotion in a way that the audience gets it. And that's verbal, vocal, facial, body language. Like I said, every atom of your body should be expressing emotion. So I learned all of that from improv and translated a good deal. I think a lot of my career, as whatever level of success it was, I'm very proud of it. But it's not like I'm a movie star. All that came from my training with improv.
With everything that you just explained, do you feel like that's why improv is a lot more in the spotlight these days? And do you feel like that's exactly why there's a lot more theater institutions that are incorporating a lot more improv in their curriculums?
Yes, and they should do so, and they should continue to do so, and continue to expand it. So I teach corporate occasionally, a corporate workshop here and there. I teach my science communication people, and all that. 20 years ago, I would have to spend the first 5 minutes explaining why improv is beneficial at all and why these people are sitting through an improv workshop. Now it's pretty much accepted. It's pretty ubiquitous. People have heard of Yes and, at least outside of Whose Line Is It Anyway? People understand that there's a real skill set that goes with this. And everything that I was just babbling on about, I think has a lot more awareness and acceptance kind of across, theater people as well as into other spheres. I taught for NASA and JPL, Brookhaven National Lab, which is these are the two biggest labs in the country. Monterey Bay Aquarium, National Park Service. I do a lot with all these scientific organizations that you would think would be the absolute antithesis of improv. They bring me in because they recognize the value of the skill set. In corporate talk, you got to say it's a corporate value or a corporate benefit, right? Organizational benefit, organizational value. So then they'll be more open to it. But yeah, improv, you and I know because we teach it and we live it and we love it. It's really beneficial for every part of your life. It's not about you could use it theatrically, but it helps you interpersonally when you're talking to your partner, your neighbor, your mom, your dog, your barista. If you're talking to another human being, having these skills that come from improv will help smooth your communication. It helps you and that other person get to the good stuff sooner. It helps you avoid some conflict. It's improv training is just so beneficial across the board.
Man, I have to share this story because this is something that resonates with me so much as a teacher. I remember a couple of years ago in my level 1 class at my home theater at Just the Funny, I had this one girl, her name was Susie. I hope she's listening to this. And I carry this moment in my heart all the time. Hi, Susie. She was super shy, obviously, but as the weeks progressed, she gradually got better and better and better and better. And then cut to the live student show that they do. And she had a couple of friends that were seated in the front row. And then at the end of the show, we gathered all the students and they get to do a bit of a Q&A with the audience. The audience gets to ask them questions about what did they enjoy and stuff like that. And I forget the exact question that was asked, but someone asked a question. Susie comes out and just very confidently just answers the question. Yeah, I enjoyed it because I got to do this and that. And then as she's answering this question, I happened to glance out and I saw that all of her friends in the front row started to cry.
Really? Oh, that's so touching.
Yeah, because that was the first time they had ever seen Susie with that much confidence before.
I just got a little chill. Thank you for sharing that. That's so important too. And Oh God, and I've had moments like that. I volunteer right now at the high school. We do a little high school improv club, and one of my students, I won't name them, um, first day came up and said, "I'm only doing this because of my shyness. Like I'm kind of forcing myself." And I love that kid. I love that kid. They are not the outgoing one. They are not jumping into every scene. They're not, jumping in with a lot of ideas or whatnot, but they're there and they're doing it and they're learning and they're getting a little better and a little more confident. And I would offer this to anybody in the world, in the history of our species, LD. If you ever wanted to improve your interpersonal communication stuff, take an improv 101 class, because it's low stake. That's another great benefit of improv. Say you go in and you mess up the story about the mermaid who's eating a burrito. Who cares? At the end of the day, no one is going to remember that. But the mechanics of getting up in front of other people, listening to other people, specifically trying to connect your information to that last person's information, all these skills, eye contact, body language, all these skills are so important. And at the end of the day, so nobody laughed at your line about the clown in the swamp. Who cares, right? You still got up in front of others and employed these tactics. And there is a confidence boost that comes with that. And there is so many benefits that come with it. I'm so glad you shared Susie's story. And to hear that the friends were crying in the front row. I've had a couple of experiences like that over the decades, but not a lot. And it just tells you how meaningful that was to that woman and to her friends. That's beautiful.
Brian, I got one more question for you, my friend.
Shoot, what is it?
And this has been an absolutely wonderful time, and I'm excited to hear your answer to this question.
Yep.
What's the one piece of advice that has served you well that you'd want everyone else to hear?
Oh God. One piece of advice served me well. I think it is, if it doesn't hurt others and doesn't hurt you, do it. Try it. Participate. Jump in, right? That's what served me really, really well. And I don't know that I got that advice phrased from anybody over the years, but I picked that up from a lot of people, like jump in and do it. And you learn so much from it. You get so much out of it. And you learn that if you say a line that doesn't go over, no one dies. It's not the end of the world. So you didn't get a laugh from the cute guy in the class. No one care. It's like you'll get the laugh next time, maybe, if that's what you even care about. But if you're not hurting anybody or yourself, do it. That's the note I give most as a coach too, is when I'm watching a couple of students do a scene and they're talking about, we're going to cut down the tree. Well, what if that happens? And then what if termites and I'll just sit back, do it. Cut down the tree and see what happens next. It forces you forward in life. It forces you forward in your education of this stuff. And again, this stuff applies to everything in your life. So if you're not hurting anybody, do it.
I'll also add to that. It's always better to do it than not do it and wonder what if.
Yeah, of course. That's a beautiful way to put it. Put that on a mug. I'll put that on my wall. Send it to me.
You got it. I absolutely will. Brian, I cannot thank you enough. This was a great time, and I wish you so much love, joy, and success in your future, my friend.
Oh, right back at you, LD. Thank you so much for including me, and this is a great conversation. I'm sorry I rambled so much. I get excited. I love this stuff so much.
I love rambling. Don't worry about it.
Good. Well, edit it down to only 4 hours before you put it out. It was great to hang out and have a conversation with you, LD.
Thank you very much, my friend.
All right, brother. Have a great one. Bye.
Jump on in and do it. Go ahead, cut down that tree and see what happens. You gain so much more by going for it, so just do it. My thanks to Brian Palermo for sharing his time with me today. I truly enjoyed talking to him, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. You can learn more about Brian and his project, Palermo Improv Training, by visiting his website, palermoimprovtraining.com. Find out about how you can learn from Brian how to use improv for comedy, corporate programs, and science communication. And you can find all of his television and film credits at imdb.com. And don't forget to visit my website, togetherbymyself.com, to learn about my solo improv show and how you can contact me for shows and workshops at your theater or venue. I appreciate Brian's time with me, and I appreciate my time with you. Thank you for being my friends, and please remember to like and review. Have a wonderful day, my friends, and be sure to come back here for more great fun on Improv and Magic.